Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle. Here, live in the Cincy Light Studios. This show, as always, presented by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m., Check them out on Instagram at RemyTav Cincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And with that, George, you are post-op, so you are not 100% with us tonight, but you are doing your best to be here, and we appreciate that. Last week, we took the week off with your surgery, with the election day. We just didn't feel right doing it without you.
Last week would have been real interesting if we would have done it that night with me in that bed in the hospital. Who knows what you would have gotten out of me, man. I'm laying there. They got me on all these drugs, and I'm talking to people who aren't there, and it was interesting.
Well,
it was very. I'm not much better now. Last night I was laying in bed talking to people who weren't there either. So I'm going to have to start taking a look at some of these pills I'm getting from Mrs. Vogel.
That's fantastic. But we'll get this show going just so we can get you out of here quickly. Saturday, the Cincinnati Bearcats drop a close one to West Virginia. That's 2 in a row now to West Virginia. This one, 31-24. Cincinnati came back in the second half to try and make something of it. They weren't able to get the onside kick late in the, pooch kick, whatever you want to call it, I guess. Trying to get the ball back. In any case, Cincinnati dominated almost every statistic in this game except the score and interceptions. Turnovers.
Yeah, that's what stinks. Is it's very possible that I could have passed out before that game started, slept through the whole thing, woke up, started looking through the stats, and thought, "Oh wow, the Bearcats played really well and they won this game." If you that's last year West Virginia rolled them. There was just no chance in that game. They got steamrolled by the Mountaineers. This year it was the other way around, but they still lost the game. And it was like so many games they lost last year where they win the statistical battle. But the battle of big plays that matter all go one way. And that's what happened in this game. I mean, that early pick six on the 4th and 1 or whatever it was just an absolute killer. Say you don't get it. Say Sorsby sacked. Okay. You give them the ball down by the 25, 30-yard line, whatever. You feel like your defense is doing okay. You're not. But that's a quick 14-point turnaround there that was tough to recover from. And then, when you make another mistake down the road after that one, it just compounds. And that was a shame. That never should have happened. I know Sorsby feels bad about it. Those are plays quarterbacks can't make. You can't just fling the ball up in the air and pray to God it's one of your guys that are going to be on the other end grabbing it. That was just a bad play, and I wasn't all that enamored with the play call either. I just felt like, and it kind of blew up when the one kid didn't bite on the run to the other side. He stayed on the quarterback, and that blew that whole play up. And that's when Sorsby should have known, I just got to either run for it or get rid of this thing. One of those two. Nothing else. Not just throwing it up for grabs while you're getting slung to the turf. And, I wasn't a big fan of that play design anyway in that situation, because I just felt like if West Virginia did play it right, you didn't have a lot of options. There was like nobody to throw to.
That seemed to be the theme of the day, as it didn't seem that Sorsby. Look, I mean, for having a day where he threw 25 of 36 for 279, I know 80 of them came on that long catch and run by Evan Pryor, but outside of that, it just didn't ever at any point feel like dudes are just open. And
No,
that's
no.
been that just seems to be something that this team's running into. You didn't have a long ball longer than 16 yards in this game. That's again, they don't throw the ball deep anymore. They don't make attempts to throw the ball deep anymore. Maybe one or two here or there in a game, but that's about the long and short of it. No pun intended. And again, that 80-yard catch and run was not a deep ball. It was just
Uh,
Evan Pryor doing what Evan Pryor does and creating a touchdown on one of his limited touches.
yeah, and it's so much easier to defend a team that can't throw the ball down the field at all. And they haven't been doing it
Yeah,
for weeks and weeks. And it's so much easier to defend them. And it takes away from your running game, even though they're still running the ball at a successful clip. They can be running it so much better if they had any kind of downfield threat at all with passing the ball. I mean, those numbers would be so much better than what they are now if they had that kind of a threat to be able to stretch the field a little bit. And they don't have it. Other teams know it. Other teams are playing to it. And I think there were three receivers on that side when Sorsby was rolling that way, trying to shake that defender. Wasn't any of them open until he let it go. Then once he let it go, I don't know if it was Royer or somebody got a couple yards behind their guy. It's too late by then. Like
right.
nobody was open on that play. And yeah, as you said, it's been play after play after play. It's been that way where nobody's open. And Sorsby was asked about it after the game. And, he's not going to make excuses, but I feel bad for the kid in that situation because, you can't sit there and say, yeah, my wide receivers, they're not getting any separation and therefore that's killing us. He can't say that about his own wide receivers, but right now it's true.
It's frustrating. It's maddening. It's one of the things that has stuck in my craw for the last several games because they just aren't even trying to throw a 50-50 ball up.
No,
If you're getting picked off that way, I think I'd at this point be okay with it because you're trying something different. You're trying to move down the field, find one of those chunk plays, and if it's just
correct.
if it happens to be good coverage on a Xavier Henderson, who look, he's what 6'3", 6'4", he should be able
Right.
to go up and get. It should be the percentage should be higher than 50-50 if you're throwing it to him, a good placed ball.
In
But
the last game they played at home at Nippert, they took a shot like that, and it got picked off, but I had no problem with it. I mean, it was basically like, okay, there's your punt. It was a
right,
third down play. I can accept that. That's fine. But we're not even seeing many of those in this stretch
correct.
where you just say to hell with it, let's go for it because chances are we're going to end up punting anyway. And I don't know. I keep saying they got to figure it out, but it's damn near too late to figure it out. We're in November.
Well, you say that, and it seems the defense did figure it out because the defense held West Virginia to 248 total yards, under 100 rush yards at 92, only 156 pass yards. They held West Virginia to 3 of 11 on third down, only 9 first downs. Now, granted, West Virginia didn't have to hold on to the ball offensively because they did have the turnovers.
Right.
So they were able to make, and they were starting their drives on their average starting drive was from their own 41-yard line. So they were doing some things correct. But defense largely has figured some things out, and they look to
Yeah.
be playing a lot better. I say
I
all
would
that.
agree with that. I am a little disturbed by, the special teams and just the allowance of returns was that was disturbing in this game too. I mean, they were just getting too good a field position off these punts and kickoffs that it's like, come on, you got to give your defense some help when they're playing that well. You can't constantly have the ball outside the 35-yard line to start drives. It just, I don't know. As you can tell, the whole thing kind of peed me off.
You want to know one that upset me maybe more than all the other obvious stuff?
Give it to me.
West Virginia scores the last touchdown or field, whatever. They went up 10 after the Sorsby like backwards pass or whatever.
Yes.
I think that's when this was. West Virginia kicks off. Logan Wilson fields it in the end zone or right around the end zone and returns it and gets stopped at the 15-yard line.
Right.
The ball to 25.
Right.
Like that's just an extra 10 yard. You're down 10. There's only like 3.5 minutes left. Like that's the stuff on special team. They lost all of those hidden yards.
Absolutely.
60 minutes. Every damn time. There was a personal foul on a punt return or letting a kick return get to the 50 or that. What are we doing? Because like they score the touchdown to get within 3 or 4 or whatever it was, 24-21. And they take the kickoff to the 50.
Right.
And you get a stop. You get the stop there, right?
Right.
But they punt it to the 6.
Correct.
If you stop them back where you're supposed to stop them and they punt, you get it at the 35-yard line, 35-yard line.
Exactly.
And you're down 3. Like you got a chance to go win the game.
Absolutely.
And instead they put you on the 6 and you're not stretching the field. So you're not going to get a big splash play. It just
those hidden return yards like that were a killer in that game.
Stupid. Stupid, George.
I don't know. That's exactly how I felt Saturday watching that. I didn't understand, and I was very disappointed in that because every one of those decisions or outcomes has a bearing on the final score of the game. Every one of them. So they're all important. So you got to play like they're all important. And it just didn't seem like they were getting that. I'm not saying that wasn't preached. I don't know. But that's something that needs to be looked at. That's for darn sure. And when you look down that slate of total yards and rushing yards and first downs, how the hell was this a game? Let alone a game you lose.
Turnovers, George. That all said, you're coming down the home stretch and still searching for that elusive 6th win to go bowling. You've got 7-2 Iowa State, a game that you are not the favorite, certainly not the favorite. Iowa State, a 9-point favorite currently in that game on Saturday at 8 because, we play night games when we're not at home.
I know.
And then you have ranked Kansas State after that and finish it up with TCU. What hope do you have for this team as they are going to Iowa State?
I have hope for a 6th win out of these 3 somewhere. I don't know where. All of a sudden, what's going on with Iowa State? I watched them for a while Saturday. I watched them the week before. Maybe it's me. Maybe if I keep watching them, they keep losing. So I'll definitely be watching this Saturday. But what's happened to them all of a sudden? I mean, they looked unbeatable, and I do like their quarterback, and I think he's in his 2nd year starting as a sophomore, and his dad played in the NFL, and he's just kind of got all those intangibles, and he's a strong kid too. I saw him. Not in this past week's game, it was a week before, where it looked like they had him sacked and he kind of spun around and somehow not only had the strength to stay on his feet and deliver a pass, but deliver a completed pass for a first down, which was really impressive what he did in that game. So UC is going to have this is a tough foe. And night game at their place after they've lost a couple. That's a tall task, but we'll see if the Bearcats are up for it. The problem is, I still feel like if the Bearcats do hit on the cylinders they have, that they're fine. They could win this game. But I've yet to see it. And I'm just wondering, you know, I know all these people have been on Coach Satterfield's butt about it, and rightfully so. That's where you start. But he's got to start supplying some answers here that we see on the field.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on Saturday. I don't feel great about it. I feel better about them playing. I feel better about them playing Kansas State, but
right,
and also playing TCU and Sonny Dykes. But we'll see. It's a battle of the 3-3-5s as Tyson Veit will face. Tyson Veit will play his old team and present his new defense. So if anybody knows the 3-3-5, it's Iowa State. Can't feel good about that either.
Right. No, they know every little thing there is to know about it, but we'll see how they play out. It's going to be another fun game, and I'm trying not to lose sight of this, that I am enjoying having these good competitive games every week against good competitive teams. I'm trying not to lose sight of that. It sucks to lose. It sucks not being in the conversation for, the playoffs or a major bowl game. But given what happened last year, next step, get bowl eligible. They got to do that this year. I hope like hell they find a way.
As do I. On a much lighter note, the Cincinnati Bearcats men's basketball team has been rolling. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 109-54. They beat Morehead State 83-56. And this Friday, they will face Nichols instead of as a 20th ranked team in the country. They're now the 17th ranked team in the country. However, they will be doing all of that without the skills of one Dan Skillings, as he has had a surgery of sorts, and he's expected to miss some time. Obviously, you hope that his rest and recovery, much like yourself, is speedy. But we'll see how long Dan Skilling's is going to be out. Hopefully, that means maybe Day-Day's closer to getting back.
Well, I hope so, and I hope they get all this injury stuff out of the way. And Dan, being a young man, I can tell you from experience, you can bounce back from surgeries and stuff a lot quicker when you're younger than when you're my age. I don't know if we'll see Dan walking around on one of these walkers like I've been having to do this week.
No.
But maybe we will. Whatever it takes to get him back. But I hope this isn't, from everything you gather, it doesn't sound like it's anything serious or would be long-term or all that. And, this is the part of the year that you can certainly get along without him and let him rest up and get 100% because that's what they need to do. There's no rushing him back. But that being said, with him and Thomas out, that's a blow. Thank goodness his team's as deep as it is, as deep as hopefully as deep as I think it is, because they got a lot of guys to play with. And once again, when was that game against Morehead? Monday night, last Monday? What was the last game I watched? No, I watched it on television. That was the Morehead, or the one game was last Monday, Pine Bluff, and then Morehead was Friday, right?
Morehead was Friday, correct. Yeah, it was Monday and Friday.
Yeah, I had to watch that one at home. But they played well. They played really well. And there were, there's always going to be a couple spurts where maybe they get a little ahead of themselves and try to do a little too much entertaining the crowd. But I don't get the feeling this bunch does that very much. It's like when CMOS had that nice breakaway, which 99.9% of the kids in the country would have thrown that down with every bit of authority they had, and he just kind of laid it in. Oh, well, it's still 2 points, which I thought was hilarious, and I'm fine with that. I am fine with it. There is nothing wrong with that. Don't, go way up and come down and twist the ankle. Don't do anything silly. I've been very impressed with this basketball team, and I hope the injury bug is just about done. And when these guys come back, they gel, they get it together before conference season starts, and take off from there. Of course, there's some games before conference season starts we'd like to see them win, but there's still a little bit of time before those games too.
Yeah, the first of those games is going to be Georgia Tech, by all indications, despite Georgia Tech dropping 1 to North Florida. But yeah, I'm just curious, George. You're a basketball, huge Bearcats basketball fan. What's impressed you so far this season?
I just think the versatility of everybody that walks out on that floor, in my opinion, and it is. The big men can all, we know what we get with Aziz, right? We know, but we're getting that, and we're getting that in spades. I mean, he's still altering shots and doing. And I think he's even playing a little bit better so far than what I've seen. But their wings and big guys can do a lot of things. They're good passers. They're not just looking to throw up a shot every time they're close to the basket. They're whipping it back outside. I saw, I can't remember if it was Paige or Betsy, but they were underneath, like on the right side, and then whipped out a pass. And I think it was to CJ Frederick, who was all alone, open for three, whipped the pass, boom, hits the three. And it's like, that's great play out of young big guys like that, to get that kind of recognition that, I'm 6 feet from the basket, but I got a guy on me, but here's a guy who can knock down a three way out there wide open. That's impressed the hell out of me with this bunch. And I also think, and it's very early on, but for being very early on, they seem to understand what they're doing defensively for the most part. I see a lot of good, they even switch and stuff. Like, I know a lot of times they don't want to switch, but there's been a lot of good things that I've seen out of them. And I guess the overriding point on all of that is just the depth. How many guys they can go. It's like, you think, okay, they got this 5, then in comes another 5, and Rayvon and Josh Reed are still on the bench. I mean, it's just like, holy God, they've got quite a bit of depth too. So I'm really anxious. I'm excited for this bunch. I think they can do really, really, really good things this year. And it's not going to happen as a straight line because that Big 12 is going to be murder. But this could be a really good season.
I agree. I've been impressed, I think, with how well they've moved the ball offensively. Plenty of assists without turning the ball over.
You look at assists to buckets, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the thing that's impressed me the most. And then this team loves to dunk, and I love watching teams dunk. So that's.
Oh no, I do too. We all do.
And Dylan Mitchell is electric. Arnton Page he moves better than I anticipated.
Yep.
So I think there should be and Aziz. They've been throwing him very good lobs as opposed to the shitty lobs they threw him most of last year. So,
I agree with that. That early in this year, so far, these lobs have been right on the money. They've worked. I don't know how many times I found myself sitting in that arena last year going, can we just stop with the lobs? It's not working. Can they just stop? But it's working right now.
Yep.
And I don't know how much of that is a product of who they're playing, and maybe you don't get away with that in the Big 12 because everybody's got some pretty big men. But if the moment's there, you go for it. And they've had some incredible passes in those situations that have resulted in easy baskets. And very exciting, very, very fun basketball to watch.
Well, Cincinnati again hosts Nichols this week on, I think it's Friday, right? Yeah. They right now are shooting 59.1%. I think that they should handle Nichols relatively easily.
They better, or we're having a whole nother conversation next week.
You aren't lying. Simas Lukosic and his 82.4% shooting should be the highlight. But yeah, it should be fun. Do you have any concerns yet for this team?
No, I really don't. I think I can't say anything bad, even if the worst thing I could say that I've seen so far is maybe coming out when they came out that first game and it kind of looked a little lethargic and all that. It just wasn't. But it's game one and all that. But
you still scored 100.
I mean, they got it in gear, and once they got it in gear, it was whatever the hell they wanted to do. So
yeah,
it's going to be fun when they get in against some other competition, and we can't expect these big wins every night, but it's good for me, watching this team that I've seen so far this year. There's nobody I fear seeing them play and think, oh my God, they've got no chance. I don't feel that way about them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the rotations look like without Dan, especially if Day is not available. If he is available, either way, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what those rotations look like. So we'll see what happens on Friday.
Dan too, because I don't know about you, but I felt like I've always liked him, but it's just like this year, it seems like right out of the box, he had it all together. Like every facet of his game was in sync, whether it's shooting, rebounding, defense. I mean, he was putting some damn good stat lines on there, and he was doing everything. And I just hope there's not a setback here. I hope he's able to pick up where he left off, because it's apparent he's put in the work that he needed to do. Whatever he saw as his shortcomings, they worked on him.
Well, like I said, we'll see what happens on Friday, and that game on ESPN Plus at 7:00. Switching gears here, because we're trying to get you out of here a little earlier than we normally do, as that way you can go get that rest and relaxation as you.
Yeah, another one of those pills that makes me start talking to people who aren't in the room. So,
but the Cincinnati Bengals lose 34-35. The Ravens get one in Baltimore, and Cincinnati, they were so close, and they could not get it to happen. I'm still on the I don't know if T. Higgins is actually injured train. I think that this is all a play. Either way, he's making almost $22 million for just chilling. And that's frustrating because this team could certainly use him or the money, either way.
Would have made a difference in that game, probably. I mean, it's a total damn shame. And there's a lot of, I mean, is there anything, and you can start with T not playing, and is there anything that went right for the Bengals in that game? Like, it was just like
Jamar Chase went right.
Unbelievable. Yes, he was the man. But
Joe Burrow, you could argue, went right, except for on that last play. On that last play where Jamar Chase is open.
Well, but I don't understand how I see Burrow get hit in the face twice in that game, and it's not called either time. I have seen way less than that flagged in NFL games this season.
George,
and there was one earlier in the game, and they didn't call it. And it totally should have been. I don't know what they were looking at. And I'm sorry, you know, and I don't blast the refs. You don't want to come down the one play. But there were 2 penalties. And who knows, they may not have gotten the 2-point conversion anyway. And I'm totally in the minority on this probably. I would have kicked the extra point. I would have taken
Yes.
I mean, instead of riding everything on a 2-point conversion, you know, and I know the Ravens were playing pretty well too, but the way my guys are going, I think I would have much rather had the chance of overtime than put everything on that 2-point conversion.
Agreed. I saw somebody had a wild take, and I want your thoughts on it. But they said that they don't think that the Cincinnati Bengals are getting calls this season and part of last season ever since they did the coin flip celebration in the end zone. Joe Mixon, who's no longer with the team, but that was a slap in the face to the NFL. As
let me tell you something, that's as good a reason as any.
Sure, why not?
When you see what happened at the end of that game, I mean, I would hate to put any stock in that myself, but then I can't explain why, you know, Gesicki gets tackled at the goal line like that and drugged down. Yep. Okay, so he's not involved in that play. That's not how they call it during the game. How many times has there been a flag on the other side of the field after something happened over here? It's like, oh, a defensive holding over there where they weren't even going to go with the ball probably. Mm-hmm. But it's called I couldn't believe that. And I saw it on the original play because I saw obviously he was very dramatic.
As he tends to be. Yeah.
And he was even more dramatic, but he had every reason to be.
Sure.
I mean, he totally got held completely. I mean, that was such a penalty. And then when that hand comes in and slaps Burrow across the face mask, I don't know. I've been seeing that called all year, and I see him miss it twice in that game. And I don't want to think there's some conspiracy against the Bengals with you. I just don't. But when stuff like that happens, what are Bengals fans supposed to think?
I don't know. And of course, I'm sure there's been several apology letters throughout the course of this season and last season from the NFL where they don't do anything about the referees missing a call or getting a call wrong other than issue an apology letter, and that's that.
Right. I know. That was a shame because that was a hell of a ball game. I really wish Zach hadn't gone for 2 there. I was not a fan of that. The only thing I thought is he thought he had something that was going to work 100%. Well, it didn't. I just wasn't a fan of that. I would have played the overtime, but they played well enough to win that game, and it didn't happen, and now they're in deep trouble. Now, oddly, I still think they can make the playoffs.
Well, let's talk about that because they did make a move at the trade deadline. They traded for their 3rd player in team history as they bring in Khalil Herbert from the running back from Chicago, and he comes into the game. He is given one handoff that he promptly fumbles, and he never saw the field again. So then this week, the Bengals bring in Xavier Howard, who is a pariah of sorts for plenty of different reasons. I'm okay that they didn't sign him because he apparently was lowballed. I'm guessing veteran minimum, and that was not enough for him to feel worthy to play. Okay. Whatever, Xavier Howard.
Right.
Totally good with you. Probably are a cancer in the locker room.
Right.
Amongst other things. Not a great human. Leonard Fournette, would have loved him. I don't know. The Bengals did kick some tires on Leonard Fournette. He left Cincinnati without a deal as well. So you got what you got, I guess, but they are still kicking tires. So maybe they're not done yet, but yeah. What are we doing?
Well, these teams left on their schedule they can beat. And what do we think? They got to get to 10.
You can only lose one more to get to 10, and you got the Steelers twice.
That's the issue. The Steelers are the issue. I'm looking down this schedule now. Tampa Bay is probably not a cakewalk. Or wait, no, they already. That's
no. You've got the Chargers this Sunday. You've got the Steelers in game 1 at home. Cowboys, Titans, Browns, Broncos, and then you finish the season. This is what I'm terrified of, George. You finish the season in Pittsburgh, and everything's on the line.
Yep.
And Pittsburgh's going to Pittsburgh.
I know. Yep. They'll do.
Don't love that.
Yeah, I don't love that either. But I'll hold out hope. Am I expecting it? No. But it'd be a hell of a story if they can find their way into the playoffs after all this.
Well, and apparently it's going to be documented. It was announced today that Hard Knocks mid-season is going to follow the AFC North the rest of the season. So it won't just be the Bengals. In fairness, it's going to be the entire division, but that would be a documented story.
Yes. Well, I'm not giving up on them yet. Am I happy? No. Yeah, they shouldn't have been in this spot, and we know that. And you go back and look at some of these early season losses, some of the teams they lost to, and it's their fault they're in this situation. So maybe they'll find a way to dig out of it. But yeah, something's just not quite right, and I don't know what it is. But
FanDuel put out this
thing. I mean, if you own this team and you had all these parts in there and you've got all these players and all this, and you miss the playoffs with this bunch, you're kind of looking at that coaching deal, aren't you? And saying
you have to.
Right.
FanDuel put out a graphic today after Week 10. NFL stat leaders, the Bengals. Out of all of these stats, they are the leader in passing yards with Joe Burrow at 2672. Passing touchdowns, Joe Burrow at 24. Receptions, Jamar Chase at 66. Receiving yards, Jamar Chase at 981. Receiving touchdowns, Jamar Chase at 10. Trey Hendrickson, sacks at 11. The only thing that we aren't on this graphic leading is completion percentage, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, tackles, interceptions, field goals made, longest field goal, and average punt. Other than that, it is all Bengals, which is insane that you're at 4-6 and you've only won one home game.
It is insane. They should have the Chiefs record and like vice versa.
I think my biggest issue with Zach Taylor at this point in time is the simple fact that even if the Bengals parted ways with him today, end of the season, doesn't matter, take your pick. I don't think he gets hired on as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach for any other team in the NFL.
I'll tell you, Aaron, it would be interesting. I don't know either. I don't know.
I can't see it. I think that's the problem that I have with Zach Taylor, probably more than anything, is the fact that he's not up to snuff. He's not an NFL head coach outside of Cincinnati. He's not an OC outside of Cincinnati.
This season certainly is Exhibit A for that argument, because there is no way in hell this team should have this record with that talent. None.
I think they're doing it despite his play calling. I think they're doing it despite his head coaching decisions, and I'm at the end of my rope on it. I can't.
You would think there would be some, and usually when it's like that, and maybe it's just that they really like the guy, but there will start to be some fraying around the edges, and some anonymous sources telling somebody that this is going on or that's going on. We really haven't had a whole lot of that with him here. All that's been kept in. So I don't know what they think internally of him as the head coach of this team and staying as the head coach. I don't know what the players think. I mean, all I can do is assume, based on the information in front of me, that they must like him.
Yeah, for me, the fraying is already on display when you have the contract issues with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, with Trey Hendrickson, who wasn't even eligible for a contract extension, but still was demanding a contract extension.
Right. And who knows? All hell could break loose this offseason.
It
like
may
it did
just
after 2010 when Palmer left.
If you lose 2 more games, all hell may break loose. That
Yeah.
may be if you lose that second game to where you can't hit 10 wins anymore. I think that's
Right.
when the floodgates open up, and
Yeah.
this whole team is going to be squealing about
Yeah.
what's been going on, and I
Right.
don't look forward to that at all.
No.
So we'll see what happens. I'm not feeling great about it. The fact that you have to go at this point in time, 6-1, I think it is.
Yeah, that's not easy to do ever.
They've done it. They've done it before,
Yeah,
but I
done it.
don't feel great about it.
And then let's just, and quite honestly, and you look at it this way too. What do you think the Bengals' record would be with Mike Tomlin as head coach?
Right now,
Yeah.
they're 4-6
I
currently.
think it'd be pretty damn good.
I would be shocked if they weren't at least 7-3.
Exactly.
But I think
Because
that's
what
the
he's doing in Pittsburgh this year is a joke. And then to start the way they did, and with the quarterback, and then they're able to make that change, and now it looks like they're even getting better.
And
I don't know, man. Some guys can really they've got that touch, and it seems like he does, as much as people in Cincinnati like to hate him.
And
he knows how to win.
That's probably Pittsburgh's most undisciplined team since Antonio Brown's days.
Right.
So, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. But that's the difference between accepting mediocrity and hoping for better than mediocre, or expecting a standard to be met and hoping for Super Bowl rings. That's the difference.
And you know, whatever happened in the offseason with this Jamar Chase thing, that they mishandled it or he did, his side of the story seems like they did lead him to believe, hey, we're going to get to you here in a few minutes. Stand pat and we'll get this ironed out. And then you don't hear anything else. That's a recipe for disaster.
He's flirting with both All-Pro and potentially Offensive Player of the Year. And if he hits either of those, you're going to be paying far more on that contract extension than you would have seveul months ago, which was my argument all along. Is
right. That should have been
whatever bar was set. You just raised the bar waiting till next season.
Right. You've got to kind of be, when you're ahead of it, you might save a little bit of money. When you're behind it, you're not going to save any money at all. It's going to cost you. However, if you get that kind of production out of someone, then you don't mind paying the money, right?
Maybe it doesn't matter. Sure.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't matter. In any case, they got to figure out a number 2 behind Jamar Chase, because my goodness, he's doing everything he can.
Well,
Joe's doing everything he can.
That kid that Burton, what a disappointment that's been. Where you got the whole world before you and you blow off a walkthrough. Is that really what happened?
That's all indications are.
How is that possible? I mean, I can't imagine being that age, and this is assuming a lot of stuff, assuming he really wants to be an NFL football player, and assuming you want to be one of the best, your opportunity's right there, and then you blow off a walkthrough when you are more than likely going to go to this walkthrough and get a start the next day, and who knows what happens from there. I don't get it. I'm just stymied.
And his mentor is TJ Hushmanzada, who was in attendance for that game, and they apparently had a very long talk that weekend. I know he was seen in the casino. That doesn't move the needle for me at all. I don't know why any of that matters. The kid has a $5.8 million contract, and he had the worst week of his life. He probably didn't want to sit alone in an apartment in a city where he doesn't really have that many friends outside of the team. The team probably didn't want anything to do with him, as he no-called, no-showed in a very important game. Joe didn't want anything to do with him because he told him to get off his bench. He didn't want to sit by him, go away.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would hate to hear what TJ has to think about that, because the way he had to fight his way from seventh round pick,
consummate professional.
Serve. I mean, this dude was down to his last thread several times where he had to fight his way through it. And not his fault. It was injuries and stuff that buried him, and the fact you're a seventh round pick. So
right.
You're definitely at the bottom of the pecking order there. And you're having to prove yourself every day in practice. And for him to fight through all that and get to where he did, and then see someone with this kind of gift, and whoo, I guarantee you that man wasn't very happy.
Well, real quick, FC Cincinnati, speaking of not happy, they lose 2 games to New York City FC, and they're done. Season's over. Done. Potentially Lucho Acosta done in Cincinnati. Who knows? He's talking in very strange rhetoric.
Yep.
I didn't see. He was supposed to be available to the press today. I didn't see anything. I missed it. I also didn't look for it.
I didn't see it either. Yeah, that's a very disappointing finish. I think they felt like they played well enough to win, but it wasn't enough to win. Then you get those penalty kicks, and anything can happen. But yeah, that's a shame, because they were playing so well earlier in the year, and while they felt like they kind of were getting back to that stage, I'm not so sure they were.
I don't know. It's all over, and it was a weird
season.
A
weekend for Cincinnati. I mean, it just was one kick after another.
Brutal.
It was so bad.
FC Cincinnati had a weird finish to the season. I didn't feel like they were ever really right after the Olympic break. I think the Olympic break messed them up.
Yeah, it just took the juice right out of them, and it never came back.
I think they had some injury issues. Well, I know they had some injury issues. They lost a ton of talent from the season prior, but they did replace an awful lot of the, at least, goal percentage of the team goal percentage. But in any case, it's all done. It'll be interesting to see the moves. They're already involved in a large contract talk with, I don't even remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. We'll see what happens with Lucho Acosta, who just is a season removed from being the league MVP. You obviously don't want to lose him, but apparently there's some family issues going on. I don't even know what's going on with that guy. But in any case, I don't imagine you have been too tapped into the high school basketball scene.
No, I kept an eye on football Friday night, but I couldn't go to a game. We're down to the serious games now, though, in Ohio. You got Moeller playing Princeton, Lakota West playing St. X, which it seems like that happens every year in the playoffs. So those will be some great games in Division I. Anderson plays a very surprising and very tough Mount Healthy team. That I would assume Anderson, because they've been blowing everybody away, but that's interesting. And then LaSalle plays Harrison also in Division II. So they're getting down to it. Also, local high school community lost a good one yesterday. Jerry Faust, the longtime head coach of Moeller High School, and went on to Notre Dame. And he kind of, I'll tell you what, there were a lot of them. You go back, Brom Basevich and coaches like that. And Jerry was kind of like had the first sort of modern era dynasty in local high school football that carried into the 80s and that people talked about and referred to. And now it's interesting because back then it would be one or two good programs in the city. Now we're just flooded with them, which is great. Sure. It's great.
Well,
but that was a loss. Jerry was a good one.
Well, I think that about wraps up this week here on George in the Jungle.
Hey, we almost made it an hour too.
I tried. I did try. You get long-winded sometimes.
No, I totally do. And now my back's telling me to shut up.
All right. Well, we'll get you out of here. Again, thank you, as always, to Remington Tavern. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We are here on George in the Jungle in the Cincy Light Studios. We will be back here on Tuesday next week, 9 o'clock p.m., to discuss all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thanks, Aaron.